We'd only been gone 10, maybe 15 minutes. My son had found a patch of mushrooms off the trail and wanted to show me. It was a short walk, quiet, slow, the kind where time doesn't seem to move. When we came back, everything was gone. Fence. The cars. The folding chairs. The cooler. Gone. My son stopped first. He just froze in the middle of the clearing like someone pressed pause. I stepped around him, thinking maybe they'd packed up early, maybe an emergency. But it didn't feel like that. Nothing felt rushed. The grass wasn't trampled. No tire marks, no dropped bags. Then I saw it. A single folding table in the center of the clearing. A sheet of paper held down by a rock. He beat me to it. My son reached out, slow, like touching it might make it disappear. He picked up the paper, unfolded it, and read. "This is for the best. Trust me." He looked at me. Not confused, just waiting. Like I was going to have an explanation. I didn't. "It's your mom's handwriting," I said. He nodded. He knew. There was no wind, but I felt like the ground tilted a little. The air shifted. I looked around, waiting for a car to pull up, for someone to come out of the woods, laughing. "Gotcha." But it stayed silent. I checked my phone. No signal. Not even one bar. I tried walking a few steps toward the ridge, raising it up. Nothing. My son sat on a log, still holding the paper. "Are they playing some kind of joke?" he asked. I opened my mouth, then shut it. My instinct was to lie. To tell him something comforting. But it would have been the first in a long line of lies, and I couldn't afford that. "I don't know," I said. "But we're going to be okay." He nodded, but I could see it sinking in. He was doing the math in his head, like I was. No food. No shelter. No car. No reception. No one else for miles. They'd left us. And not in a panic, not in some emergency rush. They had time to fold the tents, pack the gear, wipe the table, and leave a note. That wasn't fear. That was a decision. I don't know how long I stood there. Eventually, I took the paper and folded it into my pocket. "We need water," I said. "Let's find some before it gets dark." That first hour wasn't survival mode. It was denial. I was waiting to stumble onto something, footprints, tire tracks, another car parked nearby. But the deeper we walked, the more I realized how far out we really were. I thought back to the morning. How she kissed my cheek before stepping into the trees with her friends, laughing about the cold coffee. No anger. No argument. Nothing to signal what was coming. And maybe that was the point. Maybe she didn't want to see the fallout. My son kept quiet. I kept trying to remember what was in the backpack we'd taken. Half a water bottle, some tissues, maybe a protein bar. He walked beside me, small and quiet, like he was trying not to make anything worse. When the light started to drop, we turned back. There was still nothing at the clearing. Just dirt where the fire pit used to be and the drag mark from where the cooler had been pulled across the ground. He sat again. I kept walking the perimeter like a man checking the locks on a house already emptied. "What do we do?" he finally asked. I sat beside him. I didn't want to say it, but I had to. "We survive," I said. "We stay calm and we survive." His lips were tight. He nodded once. That was it. I didn't tell him I was scared. I didn't tell him I had no idea what the next hour would look like, let alone the night. But I knew one thing. If she thought leaving us out here would break us, she hadn't thought far enough ahead. Because I would remember this. Not the betrayal. Not the silence. The look on my son's face. The way he waited for me to lead. And the note. The 7 words that started it all. "This is for the best. Trust me." We'd see about that. The first night came faster than I expected. The trees swallowed the light before the sun was even gone. We didn't have flashlights, just the dull glow of my phone screen before it died. I didn't let my son see how fast I was breathing. I told him we'd sleep near a thick patch of trees where the wind was blocked. I used my jacket to cover him. I didn't sleep. I sat upright with my ears wide open, every crack of a branch setting off alarms in my chest. He whispered once in the dark. "Are they coming back?" "No," I said quietly. "They're not." I didn't explain why. I didn't have the full picture yet. But I knew. This wasn't a mistake. Day 2, we built a lean-to. I had him gather dry branches while I tried to lash them together with the drawstring from my pants. He watched me closely, quiet, patient. That's when I realized he wasn't just afraid. He was waiting to become useful. We were thirsty by then. I showed him how to tie my shirt between two sticks to catch rain. He kept asking if it was enough. I told him, every drop counts. I didn't say that my mouth felt like sandpaper. We rationed the protein bar over 2 days. I took a bite the first day. On the second, I handed it to him and pretended I wasn't hungry. "You sure?" he asked. I nodded. "You're still growing. I'm just trying to stop shrinking." He laughed a little. That helped. By the third night, the cold sank deeper. He leaned into me, his fingers wrapped around my wrist. I remembered a time when he was 5 and had a nightmare. He curled up the same way on the couch, thinking I could protect him from monsters. This time, the monsters were real. On day 4 he cried. Not loud. Just quiet tears that slipped down without him wiping them. I didn't stop him. He had a right. "We're going to die out here, aren't we?" he said. I didn't answer right away. I just sat with it. Then I looked him in the eye. "We're not going to die. We're going to show them who we are." From that moment on, something shifted. In both of us. I caught sight of a bird skimming the trees and followed it until we reached a shallow dip in the land. I scraped the dirt, hopeful. On the 5th day, we found a stream. Not wide. Not fast. But clean. He drank too fast and threw up. Then tried again, slower. I washed his face. We stayed near the stream the next few days. I showed him how to use his shoelace to rig a crude snare. We didn't catch anything, but it gave us something to do, something that felt like control. Every night, I told him a story. "How do you know all this?" he asked once. "My dad," I said. "He taught me when I was your age." He didn't ask more. But the next morning, he woke up before me and had already collected wood. That was day 7. Day 8 we started walking again. I had no compass, just instinct and the slope of the land. I told him water flows downhill, and people build near water. He believed me. That was enough to keep going. His feet were blistered. I cut a piece of cloth from my undershirt to wrap around his ankle. He winced but didn't complain. "Think Mom's worried?" he asked once. I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect him from the thing I already knew. "She's not coming back," I said instead. He nodded slowly. "Okay." We walked in silence for most of day 9. I kept checking the sun's angle, hoping to see a rooftop, a fence, anything. My hands were cracked from the cold. My stomach felt hollow. But he kept up. 1 foot in front of the other. On day 10, we heard it before we saw it. A low rumble, distant but real. A truck. I shouted, waving my arms. The truck slowed, then stopped. A man in a park ranger uniform stepped out, wide-eyed. "Are you the 2 missing from Site 14? He looked at us like we were ghosts. "My God," he whispered. "Your wife said you wandered off. That you probably ran." I felt something twist in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just a quiet confirmation of what I'd feared. I looked at my son. He didn't blink. "She lied," he said. The ranger stared at him, then back at me. "Get in the truck," he said. "We're taking you home." But it didn't feel like we were going home. It felt like we were entering the next part of a story I hadn't wanted to write. The ranger's truck smelled like coffee and dust. My son sat beside me, arms crossed, his eyes locked on the road. I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her car pull up behind us. But it never did. At the station, they handed us warm bottled water and a blanket that felt too clean. A woman with a clipboard kept asking if I needed medical help. I told her no. My son was dehydrated, maybe underweight, but he was stable. So was I. It wasn't our bodies they needed to worry about. In the next room, an officer walked us through what they knew. My wife had called the ranger station 2 days after we disappeared, said we went for a walk and never came back. She sounded upset. Said she was afraid I'd taken our son and gotten lost. "She said you'd been acting erratic," the officer added. Withdrew from the group. That she was concerned. I didn't respond. I just watched his eyes. He looked uncomfortable reading the report. Like the words didn't sit right with him either. They showed us the official missing persons flyer. It had the wrong date on it. No one searched after day one. No dogs. No volunteers. No helicopters. Just a phone call and a report filed out of obligation. My son sat on the edge of the bench, his fingers digging into the fleece of the blanket. I touched his back lightly and he looked up. His face was hard. "I want to go home," he said. But when we got there, it didn't feel like home. She wasn't there. Neither were her friends. The place looked untouched. Mail stacked at the door, shoes in neat rows. It was like we'd never existed. That night, my daughter came running down the stairs. She was shaking, crying. "Dad, I knew something was wrong," she sobbed. "She told me you took him and left." But I didn't believe her. I hugged her, not because I had words, but because it was the only thing that made sense. My son stood behind me, silent. When she looked at him, her breath caught. He looked different. Older. Broken in places no one could see. "She left us," he said quietly. "She left us to die." I didn't correct him. He wasn't wrong. Over the next few days, I didn't make any calls. I didn't try to confront her. I started collecting. The flyer. The ranger's statement. The lack of search logs. I ordered bank statements. Spot charges. Restaurant bills. All dated during the time we were missing. My lawyer didn't ask why. He just nodded and started sorting them into folders. "You're not going to her first?" he asked. "No," I said. "She told her story. I'm telling mine. We didn't make noise. We made paper. And paper doesn't lie." The police chief called me 2 days later. Said he had questions. That her story didn't add up. That things weren't sitting right with the investigators. I told him to do whatever he needed. Meanwhile, my daughter followed me from room to room, afraid I'd leave again. My son barely spoke. But every night, I found him sitting on the floor with the note, folding it, unfolding it, reading it again. "This is for the best," he'd whisper. "Trust me." And then he'd stare at the wall like he was trying to understand what those words ever meant. I didn't take the note from him. I let him keep it. Let it remind him what people are capable of, especially the ones you think you know best. The next morning, I stood at the sink washing a single mug. My lawyer called. "We have enough," he said. "And the court's already watching." I looked out the window. My son was sitting on the porch, feet dangling, that same note folded in his lap. She thought we'd disappear, fade into the woods. But we came back. And we came back different. This wasn't about proving her wrong anymore. It was about making sure she couldn't rewrite the story. The police moved faster than I thought they would. Once the full report was in, our medical evaluations, the ranger's statement, and the quiet gaps in her version of events, they opened an official investigation. Not just a welfare check. Not just a custody dispute. A criminal case. She didn't see it coming. She was still playing the role of misunderstood wife. Telling people I'd wandered off. That I was under stress. That I'd taken our son into the woods and gotten lost. She underestimated the truth. She underestimated our silence. The detectives questioned her first. Then her friends. Separately. Her story wavered. She said she'd gone back to look for us, then later said she was too afraid to return. She said they'd called search crews, but couldn't provide names or logs. Meanwhile, my lawyer organized every file into a timeline. The bank withdrawals from out-of-town restaurants. Spot treatments billed during the search. The social media photos. The note. It was her handwriting that undid her. That single line. "This is for the best. Trust me." I'd had it analyzed, matched against her own entries in old birthday cards and paperwork. It was hers. There was no way around it. My son was called in next. The officer handling the interview said he didn't flinch. He just answered. Quietly. Clearly. "She left us," he said. "She knew what she was doing." That same day, my lawyer filed for full custody of both children. He attached everything. The photos, the medical reports, even the call logs showing she'd never once dialed a search hotline. The judge didn't hesitate. Emergency custody granted. She didn't show up to the hearing. Sent her attorney instead. I didn't see her face when the papers were served. I didn't need to. The news picked it up faster than we could prepare. Local outlets first, then national ones. Father and son survive 10 days in wilderness after mysterious disappearance. Wife and friends under investigation for alleged abandonment. The public turned quickly. What started as curiosity turned into disbelief. Then outrage. Reporters camped outside her friends' homes. Employers issued quiet statements distancing themselves. A few of the women deleted their online profiles. One even closed her boutique. She tried to fight back. Hired a PR firm. Claimed mental distress. Claimed I had manipulated the narrative. But truth doesn't bend forever. It just waits. One night, I found my daughter sitting at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone. She looked up at me, her voice thin. They're saying she might go to jail. I didn't respond. She always cared about how people saw her, she said. This will destroy her. I sat down beside her. She destroyed herself, I said. She just didn't realize it at the time. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse with both my children. My son held the note in his pocket. My daughter held his hand. There were cameras, microphones, questions we didn't answer. Inside, I spoke softly. Explained the timeline. The facts. What we saw when we returned. What we didn't see. Then my son took the stand. He unfolded the note slowly and held it up. His voice didn't shake. She said to trust her, he said. But she left us. I thought we were going to die. The room stayed silent for a long time after that. My wife sat across from us, pale. Her lawyer kept whispering in her ear. But she didn't look at him. She looked at our son. And for the first time since this began, she looked like she knew it was over. Not because of the court. Not because of the law. But because she'd lost him. Not just legally. Emotionally. And there's no coming back from that. Outside, reporters swarmed. I didn't say much. Just enough. She made her choices, I told them. And we made it out. That's all there is. But we both knew it wasn't all. She thought we'd break. What she didn't count on was that we'd come back stronger. Together. And ready. After the hearing, the house felt different. Not quieter, just clearer. The tension that had been humming beneath everything for years was gone. No more whispered arguments behind closed doors. No more eggshell mornings or tight-lipped dinners. She didn't come back. The court order made sure of that. Full custody was mine. She wasn't allowed contact, not even a phone call. My daughter tiptoed through the first week like the walls might crack. I caught her one morning standing in the doorway to her mother's room, just staring at the bed. You can go in, I told her. She didn't. Just shook her head and walked away. I didn't clear the room right away either. I wasn't ready. The scent of her still lived in the closet, lavender and hand lotion and something colder beneath it. My son didn't ask about her. He kept himself busy. Cleaned the garage without being asked. Organized his school supplies. Spent hours on the back porch just sitting. One night, I sat beside him. You okay? I asked. He nodded. I don't miss her. It should have broken me. Instead, it made something inside me settle. We didn't talk about the forest. Not in detail. He had the note folded into a tiny square, tucked inside a small wooden box he made in shop class. He didn't open it. Just kept it near. Like a reminder of what he'd survived. We fell into a rhythm. Mornings were quiet. I cooked. They got ready. I dropped them at school. No screaming matches. No slammed doors. I realized how much of my energy had gone into managing her moods. Walking around her silence. Explaining her absences. Now I could just be. I started taking my son on weekend hikes. Nothing far. Nothing intense. Just enough to breathe air that didn't feel heavy. He never complained. Never hesitated. He trusted me now in a way he hadn't before. Because I'd kept him alive. One Sunday, we sat on a hill watching the light shift through the trees. He turned to me and said, "Do you think she ever cared?" I thought about it. Carefully. I think she cared about herself more, I said. And sometimes that's all a person knows how to do. He nodded. That was enough. My daughter started drawing again. She painted a small canvas of the three of us, standing on a trail, surrounded by mountains. There was no one else in the picture. I hung it in the hallway. A neighbor stopped by a few days later, one of the ones who used to have wine nights with her. She brought cookies and too much curiosity. "I just wanted to check in," she said, eyes darting past me into the house. "It's all been so sudden." I didn't let her in. "We're doing fine," I said. "You don't need to worry about us." She looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't. Just smiled and left. People were starting to realize it wasn't just a story in the news. It was real. She had really left us. And we had really survived. One evening, after the kids were asleep, I stood in the doorway of her room. I opened the closet, touched the sleeve of one of her dresses. It didn't make me angry. It didn't make me sad. This felt over. So I packed the room, box by box. I didn't burn anything, didn't destroy it, just removed it, made space. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Not because I'd won, but because there was nothing left to carry. Some things never leave you. Not completely. The forest was one of them. Even now, years later, I still hear the silence sometimes. That thick, unnatural kind that settled over the clearing the moment we saw the note. "This is for the best. Trust me." My son still keeps it. He doesn't talk about it anymore, not unless someone asks. But it's there, folded clean and sharp, in the same wooden box he made when we came home. He's taller now. Stronger. There's a steadiness in him that wasn't there before, like something inside him hardened but didn't break. He doesn't flinch at conflict. He doesn't chase approval. He knows exactly what it means when someone says, "I love you," but walks away when things get hard. He learned that early. My daughter kept the painting in the hallway. She added a dog last year, just a blur of color near the trees. "For balance," she said. They both moved on. In their own way. I did too. But I never forgot. Because forgetting would mean erasing the part that changed us. The survival. The betrayal. The quiet strength we built when there was no one coming. A few months ago, I was invited to speak at a local school. Not about the story, just about resilience. The principal had heard about us. Word gets around. I stood in front of a room full of teenagers, all slouched and skeptical, and I told them what it meant to keep going when no one is looking for you. I didn't mention her name. I didn't need to. I just told the truth. After the talk, a girl came up to me. She looked about 16. Said her mom used to disappear for days when she was little. She'd come back like nothing happened, the girl said, smiling. "But you always remembered, right?" I nodded. "You always remember." She thanked me and walked away. Later that night, my son found me in the garage. I was fixing the hinges on an old box. He leaned against the wall. "Quiet. You think she ever regrets it?" he asked. I set down the screwdriver. "I think she regrets getting caught." He didn't respond right away. Just nodded, like he'd already known. Then he smiled a little. Not bitter. Just tired. "You were right though," he said. "We did survive." "Yeah," I said. "We did." We stood there in silence. The good kind. I still get asked sometimes, by people who only know pieces of the story, how I didn't fall apart. The truth is I did. Just not all at once. But falling apart quietly gives you time to rebuild differently. Stronger. More intentional. Less afraid. I don't spend time thinking about where she is now. Last I heard she was denied early release. Something about lack of remorse. I don't wish her harm. I just don't wish her anything. Because that part of the story is closed. The part that matters is the one we're still living. One evening, my son and I went for a walk. Same forest. Different trail. The leaves were starting to fall, covering the dirt like a second skin. He looked up at me and smiled. "Remember when she said it was for the best?" he asked. "Yeah." She was right. I didn't laugh. I didn't say anything clever. I just nodded. Because some truths are earned, not spoken. We came out of that forest different. Not just alive, but awake. Unshakable. Together. And no one will ever take that from us again.